Hello everyone, and welcome to this tutorial series where we're gonna be creating these cute bird-like characters. Now, I gotta tell you, I'm going to be calling this a chicken in the tutorial for some reason, but it's more like a bird. So don't worry about that. We'll be focusing on the modeling of this, the texturing, adding the hairs, the eyes, of course. Those are the key to the soul, so they have to be perfect. Alright, so we're going to be creating this fluffy character. Now, I gotta tell you, about 90% of you are not subscribed. And I'm going to be creating way more tutorials, way more things that can be very useful. So if you enjoy this, please do subscribe, leave a like or a comment. I will be extremely happy with any of those. So let's dive right in. So welcome in Blender. Right, we're going to start off with deleting our little friend, or actually let's just subdivide this. Right, we're gonna give him a little break and just keep it in the scene for a change. So we're just gonna subdivide this to, well, let's say 2 times. I want to work with quads, so subdividing a cube usually works out quite well for that. All right, so a cute shape, we need something fluffy, something small perhaps. So I'm just going to, well, set this to 3 perhaps, so we have a little bit more detail. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. And then I'm actually just going to go to sculpt mode, and we only have 4 vertices right now to work with. Remember, we only have those 4 that we can see in edit mode. That's what we're working with, which means we can just define the basic shapes of our mesh. Alright, so I'm just gonna enable my X symmetry, and yeah, I'm just gonna drag some of these out a little bit. I want to have some kind of a stretched shape, at least in the Y direction, Z direction, sorry. Something like that, maybe a little bit there. Make it a little bit more chubby looking, perhaps, something like that. And I think that's fine for a basic shape. So I want some small feet pointing out at the bottom, some very short arms. Perhaps it's going to be like a little bird or something like that. All right, baby bird, perhaps. So I'm going to go to object mode, and we're just going to shade this in with. This is fine for a body. Right, for a default body, this is fine. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this to 1, and I'm just gonna apply it and look at the geometry. Right, I'm looking for a geometry that I can work with. 4 vertices is not enough to, for example, create holes for the eyes or to extrude the arms, the legs for. So we need some kind of geometry that we can actually start working with. And let's see if this is it already. I think this works fine. Okay, so what I'm looking for, and this is important, is looking for geometry that you want to work with. Extrude inwards, extrude outwards. So, for example, I want 2 big eyes here. I know for a fact that if you have a cube, for example, if I inset this, and I mean a square, and if I extrude this now, and if I now subdivide this again, this is going to be round, right? Because we have a squared shape that we subdivide, it is going to be rounded, right? So we can see that here. If I set this to 2, or even 3 to make it nice and smooth, you can see this is rounded. Beautiful. So that is something we need, and that's the geometry I can work with. And for those arms, I think I can make it from insetting those 4 faces as well, and then extruding it. So I think this is all we need in edit mode. So it's going to be quite low poly to work with. Alright, so what we're going to do first is I'm going to go into vertex select, so press 1 on your keyboard. I'm going to enable X-ray mode. I still can't remember that shortcut. It's Alt-Z. I've been using Blender for more than 3 years now, and I still can't remember that. I should work on that. And I'm just going to delete this entire right face, right side of the face. And now we have to make sure that this edge right there, so that's the part that I extruded from the eye, we have to make sure that that is not going past the middle right there. Okay? So I'm going to select that face, and I'm just going to press double G to move that along the edge direction, and just make that, well, short of the middle, just like that, so it doesn't overlap there. And now we can just add a mirror modifier and swipe that above the subdivision. Beautiful, right? So this is already looking like a clean starting shape. All right, so Alt-Z, remember the shortcut. I'm doing my best. And now we want some wings on the side. So let's go to edit mode. I'm going to select, I'm questioning whether I should work with the top 2 or with all 4. I want them to be in the middle somewhere. So I may just work with all 4 faces. So select all 4 of them and just press I to inset those faces. All right, so just bring them down until the point where you think you can start extruding them a little bit. And I'm thinking this is fine. And then I'm going to press SZ and scale it down a little bit because I want it to be kind of like a wing, right? So it has to have a smaller base. SZ, scale that down. Now it's very pointy, so I'm going to press SX0. And that basically makes those faces flat on the x-axis, right? So now go to edit mode, go to object mode. Just see how that looks. It looks quite like a harsh part in the routing there, but we can fix that later. An easy part to fix that is just by moving vertices individually in edit mode. You can press double G to make that a little bit smoother if you want. But I'm just gonna move it manually. Alright, so it's just a little bit more rounded. Beautiful. And we can even press 2, double click those edges, hold shift and select the entire loop. And you can go to edit in this right panel. If you don't have the edit part with the loop tools, you can go to edit, preferences, go to your add-ons, and you can search for the loop tools menu there, and you can enable that. Remember to save your preferences and then just escape right out of there. And then we have this loop tools option and it has a circle button. All right, so if we click that, it's going to turn that face into a circle, which is fine. But I want to scale it a little bit in the Z axis still. So press SZ or something like that. Now I'm going to select those faces. Right, face select is 3 on your keyboard. And I'm just going to hold Control. And then I'm going to press right mouse to the part where I want to extrude this to. Right, so I want this to go down a little bit like that. Something like that. And then I'm going to scale this down like that. So it all has going to be nice and smooth. We can even replace that or change the placement a little bit. So it's a little bit closer to the body. This one too, maybe rotate that a little bit even. Something like that. So now we have some very cute arms. And they may need to be a little bit more stretched in the Y direction. So I'm going to press SY and just scale that up a little bit. Same for this final part right there. Select all the faces, press SY, scale it up a little bit as well. And that is looking quite well, quite nice. I'm going to select those middle edges, press GZ, move them down a little bit. So we have a nicer rounding to work with there. So those are our little cute arms of the character. All right, so I think you can see where I'm going with this. Next up, we want some kind of feet, all right? And I'm just going to work with one face there. That is all we need. So I'm going to press I to inset that, like so. And I may move this down a little bit, like that. Now I'm going to inset this once again, like that. And I'm just going to extrude it up, just like that. Beautiful. All right, now I'm going to select this face and just scale that up a little bit. And maybe move that down a little bit as well. So the idea is that the legs, the little legs, excuse me, are going to pop out of there. If you look at, I'm just envisioning like a chicken leg. And a chicken leg, well, it just pops out of the skin pretty much. All right, the bone will be visible. And oh my god, I'm googling chicken leg, and it's just giving me like the baked versions of it, of course. So we have to, for some reason, specify a live chicken leg. Does that work? A live chicken leg. Yeah, that works. So you can see that is basically just the skin of the leg, and then the bone pretty much pops out, I guess. Right, so we gotta do something like that. That's what I'm envisioning. So it may be a little bit too big, maybe smaller. And I'm just gonna select the outer one, press double G, something like that. And then I'm gonna press Ctrl R to add an edge loop in between, escape. And then GZ, move that down a little bit. So we get a little bit more of that rounding back. I'm going to select the inner one and just scale that down a little bit as well. So we get a little bit of a thicker looking curve there. And I think that is already beautiful. Maybe even less, something like that. I want some chicken legs, right? Double chicken legs. So they are very thin, very small. Select that entire loop, move it down just a little bit more. And let's move it inwards a little bit and rotate that as well, something like that. So the legs move straight down when they pop out, right? And maybe we have to move this entire part inwards a little bit. So I'm going to press 1, I'm going to press Alt-Z. I remember the shortcut for X-ray, oh my god. Right, and I'm going to select all of those vertices on the bottom right there that pretty much make up the leg. And you can do that by going into the box select mode. By pressing W a few times, you'll see this changing. You can also see your cursor changing for one of them. And I just want to go, well, we can also go lasso select, so you can just draw around, select the part that you want to move, and then just move it a little bit more to the right, like that, right? So our legs are going to be a little bit more to the inside. I'm going to select these two right there, move them out a little bit more again, so it gets a little bit more chibi, right? I like that look. Something like that. It's looking quite beautiful. Right, side view, check that as well. Remember, we have, of course, multiple axes. We're working in 3D, which means we also have to check the side every once in a while, and they're not completely in the middle, in the center. So I'm going to go into edit mode, press Alt Z to X-ray mode, and I'm just going to move the entire mesh there a little bit more to the middle, just like that. And I may also just rotate it a little bit like that. So what I'm looking for is to make this bottom part straight, and I can also just select that part with the lasso tool and just rotate that like that, right? So now it's nice and straighter. I can select those four that are still a little bit crooked. Sorry, those four. Rotate that a little bit, move this one down a little bit as well, right? So that's just cleaning up a little bit of the geometry. You don't have to, because you won't be seeing that probably, but I'd like it anyway. Right, I'm gonna press 3, select this curve loop, this one as well, and I'm gonna press SY and just scale that a little bit so it gets more like a circle, and SX, scale that down a little bit there. Right, so now it's nice and rounded. We have a nice opening for those chicken legs. Beautiful. Next up, what are we going to be working on? Well, I think we need those eye sockets to be a little bit deeper. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to press GY and just move that inwards a little bit more. And that's looking beautiful already. Nice. All right. One more thing I want to do is add an edge loop right there. Okay. Press GY, just move that out a little bit like this. And I'm going to double click on the inner one and scale that down a little bit. Right, the idea is to select that edge and just make it look like they pop out at least a little bit. Right, something like that. Move that in a little bit, like that. Beautiful. And we could even scale that down a little bit more, like so. That's looking nice. And that's pretty much just how you can play around with those sockets to make it look like it's at least a little bit of a popping out shape. Right, and you can always change it later in sculpt mode, for example, but I think this is fine for now. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more rounded. So what we can do is just go to sculpt mode, press G, and you can change the brush size with F, and then just moving your mouse. And what I'm going to do is just tweak this manually to make it more rounded. Beautiful. That is looking like a cute little character foundation. All right, so next up, I'm going to add those little legs. So what I'm going to do is press Shift A, mesh cube. All right, remember we want quads, so I'm going to start off with quads as well. If we start off with a cylinder, we're going to be having some weird geometry probably, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to add a subdivision surface and set that to 3. And then I'm going to go into Tab, Alt Z, X-ray mode. And right away, I want this top part to be well, pretty much at that starting point there, right, where our leg holes start. So press 1 and just draw your lasso tool around those top vertices and just move that up a little bit like that. Beautiful. And now add an edge loop, Ctrl R, left click and swipe that up a little bit as well. Now we can make this all bigger by just selecting it and scaling it. And we're going to select another edge loop there, Ctrl R, scale that down, move that to the left a little bit. And then we can just select this bottom part and we can just extrude that down, right? I'm going to extrude it in the Z-axis. I want some kind of a knee, I guess. So like that. EZ. Scale that down a little bit. So there's going to be our little knee. And I'm going to press EZ. And then just scale that down a little bit more. Like that. So this is going to be one of the legs. And I'm going to actually double click that and move it up a little bit more. This one as well. And I'm going to press Ctrl R. Add an edge loop and move that closer to that kneecap and on the top part as well. So we actually have like some a nice looking bend there. That's quite harsh. I like it. All right, so like that, and then we need some kind of feet, right? Something that sticks out. And there's an easy way to do this. And this is the part that I find, well, I used to find that hard about Blender. Actually, I'm going to move this up a little bit, just like that. So those knees just pop out barely. It is fine, we can make whatever, right? So this is the part that I always found hard in Blender, but it's quite easy once you get the hang of it. So I'm going to select this bottom part of our leg. I'm going to press SZ0, just so that it's nice and, well, scale to 0 in the Z-axis. I'm going to press Ctrl R, left click, add an edge loop right there. The reason why is because I want to extrude this out for the feet, which means that this is the face that we can now extrude outwards if we want. Let me actually get a little bit of a reference for a chicken leg. Again, where did I leave that? There we go. So how does it look? Damn, chickens are like dinosaurs, aren't they? They've got very interesting feet. Right, so they pretty much don't really have a base of the foot. The toes pretty much just go out from the start. Right, so what I'm gonna do is something amazing. And this is, well, we have a very easy geometry to work with, but I don't want this to go straight out. I want it to go like that. So the easy way to do that is select the front face, press S, X, and just scale that down. All right, something like that. And I'm going to select this edge, so press 2, edge select mode, and this edge, press SX0. All right, scale it up a little bit. So I'm trying to work in this angle. So now we have this in an angled manner. So if I extrude this now, we're actually going to extrude that more into the direction we want. All right, so that's looking great. Select that, extrude it, something like that. Not sure how long that has to be. I'm going to do the same thing with this one, extrude it. Same thing with the middle one. I want this to be a little bit wider, so press SX and scale that up a little bit more. And then just extrude it as well. Beautiful chicken leg. Amazing. Isn't that beautiful? Now, there may be one issue. If we mirror this, it's going to be overlapping. So we may have to rotate the foot all together. So press RZ and just rotate that out a little bit. All right. Now select a mirror modifier. I'm going to select the mirror object, little eyedrop tool. And I'm just going to select our main body. Like that. Now we can see it still overlaps a little bit, so press RZ and just move that out a little bit. I think that's looking quite cute, isn't it? Nice little character, short wings, is not going to be able to fly, but neither are chickens, so it's fine. I'm going to save it real quick as wanna be chicken. Yeah, why not? Right, so that is a nice starting point. Right, last thing I need pretty much is a nose. If we go to edit mode, we don't really have that much geometry left to work with. Alright, we just have a few squares and then we have the eyes. But there's no real geometry here that we can work with for the nose, for the beak. Alright, now the beak, we can just make it out of a different object. That is the easy part. Alright, so I'm going to show you two ways real quick. One way is you can just apply this mirror modifier, set this to 1 for example, and then apply the subdivision modifier, which means you're just going to be getting a little bit more geometry that you can now work with. Right, and now we can just add another subdivision, set that at 2, so we get back to that same level of subdivisions. And so now we could just select these two faces, make a little inset there, scale it a little bit in the x-axis, move it out a little bit, move it up a little bit maybe as well. And then we can press I to inset that, E to extrude that, like that. And that could be like a starting point for a nice beak or a nice mouth, for example. So what I'm going to do is just edit mode, select those two faces right there, Shift D, Escape, P, and separate by selection. There we go. So that is now a separate object. We can go to edit mode, press tab A, and just extrude that out like that. And I'm going to rotate it a little bit and just press Ctrl and right mouse to just extrude that to your mouse. Scale this as Y and rotate that a little bit like that. So this is going to be like a beak. Hopefully I can make it look like a beak and not a tongue, which it does right now. And we can, for example, just move these faces up a little bit so it connects at the top as well, right there. Right, so this is going to be a nice looking beak. And we can just move these parts up a little bit. If I want it closer to those eyes, I can select my beak, hold shift, select my chicken, and go to edit mode. And I can just press 1 and enable proportional editing tool right there. And now when I press G, you can see this little sphere up here, this icon. icon. Well, there's just this little circle, right? Circle in the screen, which is pretty much defining the fall off. The fall off of our movement. Alright, so if I scroll up, it's going to make it smaller, which means it's going to be moving a smaller part of my mesh. Alright, so what I'm going to do is just scroll this down a little bit, so it just affects like the part of the face that I want, the beak area, and I can just make this smaller and move it up a little bit, like that. I'm going to select this eye socket right there, and this one as well, these two, and I'm just going to move it down. So GZ, move it down a little bit again, so make it nice and spherical again, like that. And we can go back to sculpt mode and just drag that out, make it a little bit more spherical again, like we had before. Beautiful. I think that is a nice looking beak. We may need a little bit more geometry, or we can go into edit mode and just tweak that beak a little bit more so we don't have that hard looking edge right there, which is pretty much the result of, well, it is the result of subdividing. So if I just select my beak and hide it, and select my object, we can see that the geometry is sticking out quite a lot, right? So if I select this one, I press double G, for example, it's going to move it in a little bit more. We can press this little button to disable proportional editing, and press GZ, move that down a little bit, and that's just going to make it all nice and smooth, right? If you have two vertices very close together like that, and you have a subdivision modifier, then it's just going to try and make it very hard, right? So that's why we need some distance between vertices to give the subdivision modifier some room to breathe, just like this. All right, and then we can just enable our object of the beak again. I'm gonna GZ it, move it down a little bit, like that. Right, so beautiful. Now select it and go to sculpt mode, and I'm just gonna make some final changes so it fits nicely in between of that hole that we made for the beak. Beautiful. All right, looking great. Now let's add some eyeballs. Press Shift A, mesh UV sphere, and let's give it a little bit less geometry. So let's go with 20 and 10, perhaps. That's all we need. Press RX 90, scale that down, and move that to like the eye sockets, like that. And let's just make this look nice and clean. Right, so G is just moving stuff, and R is rotating stuff, and just make that move to like the eye socket that we just created. Beautiful. And what I'm also trying to watch is that this part right there, right? So the pointy part is going to be where the what is it called? The pupil, where the pupil is pointing. That is what it's called. So that's looking great. Shade that smooth, and let's mirror that. So add a mirror modifier, and we're gonna make the mirror object that nice little bird again. Right, so you can see that they overlap a little bit in the middle. I don't care at all. At this point, you're never gonna see the inside of the head of this bird, so I don't really care about eyes overlapping right now. So this is going to be the basic shape of a cute little birdie. Right, so that is going to be it for part 1 of the tutorial. We have the basic shape of the birds. Part 2 is going to be adding the fur. We want it to be fluffy, so we're going to be adding fur and sculpting that while tweaking the hair is grooming. That's the word. So we're going to start grooming it a little bit. And then in the final tutorial, we're going to be working on texturing and rendering. Alright, so this is going to be a 3-part tutorial. This has been part 1, modeling the bird. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that. If you do, please leave a like, a comment, or subscribe. Either one of those will make me incredibly happy. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.